कितने पैसे चाहिए?
पैसा नहीं, इज्जत। मोहल्ले के चिरकुट लौंडे हरा रहे हैं फैंटेसी स्पोर्ट्स में। आप एक्सपर्ट हो, सिखाओ।
सिखाऊंगा तो जाने दोगे?
फैंटेसी स्पोर्ट्स का
असली अखाड़ा।
इस गेम में वित्तीय जोखिम के तत्व हैं और इसकी लत लग सकती है। कृपया जिम्मेदारी से और अपने जोखिम पर खेलें।
Good morning, hello, and welcome to the Outside View presented by Fantasy Akhara. So we are here talking about the second ODI between Sri Lanka and India. So the Harmanpreet Kaur led side did win the first ODI, but hey, not without a scare. So same opposition, same venue, but a different result is what would be on Sri Lanka's mind. So what do you need to expect from this game? Who are the players to watch out for? We'll give you all of these insights as our experts join me in this show, Annesha, Ghosh and Thirushkamini. Welcome both of you. Good morning. So let me just first give the toss update there that India won the toss and they've elected to bowl first. So let's first talk about the Indian dressing room and the probably mood and vibe that would be there currently. Because coming to you, Anisha, first, we have always been talking about momentum. Irrespective of the formats, having that momentum is very important. We've spoken about this that probably India hasn't looked a lot convincing in the sort of wins that they've received. But a win, after all, is a win. And the Indian dressing room probably would be a happy place now. And the approach towards this game would depend a lot on the momentum that they've received.
Absolutely. And I think they will be a happy camp at this point in time, but certainly not a content one, simply because, as you rightly mentioned, they have been scratchy all through this tour, 4 matches in. There is very anything that suggests here is a top ranked side with lots of things going for them in the recent past, even the infrastructural boost that they've gotten on the domestic side, the contracts, etc. It doesn't quite say that here is a top ranked team that is very much in its element, is has been able to find that mojo on this tour. So for this team, it's very important that they are able to find that ruthlessness that has been eluding throughout this tour. That is key in this game, because not just would it allow them to wrap up the series with a convincing win, but also go into the final game of this tour with the kind of mindset that they would need in their upcoming assignment, which is the Commonwealth Games. You cannot afford to be as lackadaisical or be as failed in several departments as India have proven to be over the course of the past fortnight. So here's looking forward to India finding that mojo, finding their true spirit, and get to business and wrap up this particular series with a convincing win on this particular day.
And Harmanpreet Kaur will probably have that in her mind. We've seen that she's been a happy captain. India has already won the ODI series. We also want to dominate the proceedings in the T20Is. Also, there was a news early in the morning that she has re-signed with the Melbourne Renegades for the WBBL. But looking at the way Harman has managed the team, Thirush, we've seen that India is unchanged today. They've not made any changes. Probably we were hoping that they might just make a little bit of changes there with their batting unit, considering the form or the patchy performances that we've seen from the batters. But trusting your players is also very important, and that's probably the reason behind India not making any changes and going into this contest unchanged.
I mean, it's important that you back your players, because we do understand that Indian batters have been having a very patchy performance, and it is important that they have some good amount of game time, and considerable amount of game time is what I'd like to say, because it's important that it's just imagine a player having a failure or a success. You give them a good run, it'll only help them help themselves, and also will help in the team cost. So that way, I think that's what we predicted in the last game, last show as well, that we would want a team to go unchanged, so that the player has sufficient amount of time to engage themselves or understand their role. So it is very wise choice from the management to retain the same kind of 11, especially when you know there's a patchy performance and some kind of an a very unreal batting order that we are seeing at this point. So maybe it feels wise to have a very going with the same 11.
Yeah, and definitely talking of the bowlers there, they did a good job in the first ODI, and probably that was the defining thing that helped India to go there and express themselves freely out there. But now we were talking that India is playing ODI cricket without Julian Goswami and Mithali Raj. Like for the longest of time, we've seen both of them serve the country and win matches for the country. But seeing Renuka Singh Thakur, probably the entire pace bowling unit collectively did a good job in the first ODI. But specifically when we speak of Renuka Singh Thakur, it feels good, Annesha, to see that these young pacers are now coming onto the scene. They're bursting to the scene because we know that after Julian Goswami, if you look at India's pace bowling unit, you want to develop there, you want to build a strong unit come the important tournaments and series.
Certainly, more so considering the fact that pacers have historically been something of a bridesmaid to the spinners because their spinners have been by far their most effective facet, the most effective facet to their game. But in the recent past, we've seen the spinners go through a bit of a vein, go through a bit of a rough phase, which is why it has been all the more important and incumbent on the part of the pacers to put their hand up at and take up that responsibility which their spinners were not able to play, not able to take in terms of being strike bowlers or being able to deliver those breakthroughs. So Renuka being very young, relatively still inexperienced, for her to have, displayed the performance she did in the first ODI, especially given the nature of the surface, it was turning miles. So for a pacer to have been that effective and for her to have taken her career best figures in international cricket so far, it was really heartening to see. And not to forget, as we spoke of at length in our previous shows, where the support acts by Pooja Vastakar and Meghna Singh. So credit to Harmanpreet that she has retained this particular attack and isn't quite tempted to bring in Poonam Yadav right away. Despite the turn on offer, that would have been a big temptation considering here is a key senior bowler who seems to be out of form, out of sorts. It may have been tempting on the part of the captain to bring her one of her key experienced bowlers in at the cost of Meghna Singh, but I'm glad Harmanpreet hasn't done that in this game at the very least, which also kind of gives an indication that maybe Harmanpreet is really looking to be ruthless and give more opportunities, give a bit of an extended rope to her players, her playing 11 from the previous game, and wrap up the series without further hiccups. And probably the changes can come in the next game. But I would look forward to seeing Renuka Singh continue the form she exuded in the previous match, and also Harmanpreet playing as many as 8 bowlers again. That's going to be interesting because the pinners, the part timers especially, were outstanding, Harmanpreet included. So if they can bring in the kind of efficacy they showed as a bowling unit in the first ODI, I'm pretty sure Sri Lanka are likely to fold again very soon for a sub score, especially if their captain gets out early. So she's going to be the prime focus at this point. But overall, bowling unit wise, India's attack should be going into this game with confidence.
Yeah, and as you rightly mentioned about the support, whichever format it is, it's important that the bowlers come in tandem and bowl because one gets you wickets, but from the other end, if someone drives up the runs, the job just gets easier. And that's what Meghna Singh did in last game. We saw that she didn't get a wicket there, but she was extremely economical with the ball, and that's what helped the other bowlers to come in to burst into the scene and get those early wickets. So especially in a format like that of ODI, Thirush, how important it is for a bowler to come in with those economical overs because you know that probably we knew here that Sri Lanka's batting unit was struggling, but even in case when there are those strong oppositions out there, the behemoths of batting, these things become very important and it's a positive for India.
Certainly a big positive for India because it's just not how they're bowling well in tandem, but they're also bowling well. Like rightly mentioned, it is important that how we talk about a partnership in batting, we have to mention the kind of partnership that we've had in bowling. And Harman has operated 8 bowlers, and 8 bowlers have done well whenever an opportunity was given to them. And we also did see in an inclusion of Shafali Verma into the bowling lineup, which we generally don't see. And then a few overs from Harleen Deol. So that way, what happens is the combination, the Indian batting and the bowling seems a lot deeper, and a lot of options are there. So that way, bowling partnership is very important, and also a lot all credit to Harman in trying to operate them in a manner where they're able to do well because like how. I mean, the kind of confidence that was injected to them was simply because of the way Harman was able to handle her bowlers. Because sometimes what happens is when you have that many number of bowlers, you tend to lose your rhythm as a fast bowler. So she was able to handle them in such a manner that she was able to bring the best out of them. So that way, I mean, undoubtedly, a lot of credit does go to the bowler, but also partially a lot of appreciation should also go to the way that Harman has handled her bowlers. Because when you have a lot of options, you generally tend to ignore some of them, or you kind of tend to slip away. That didn't happen, and that way she was able to bring the best out of all the players.
Yeah, we did see that Harmanpreet Kaur used 8 bowlers in last game. It would be interesting to see what happens in the second ODI as well. That was about the Pacers, but coming to spin, there's this something about Deepti Sharma, Annesha. In the last game, we saw that she picked up 3 wickets. Of course, she was the player of the match as well there, but she picked up 3 wickets, and those wickets were in the overs 8th, 48, and in between the middle overs as well. So we know that Deepti Sharma is capable of bowling in all phases of the game, and that makes her an important asset of the side.
Absolutely, and most of given she's been evolving into that kind of a bowler over the course of the years. It's not as though she's been stuck in one gear, which often applies to several all-rounders when they find success. So they tend to go into a shell or tend to be in that comfort zone of theirs and not, push themselves or push the envelope to reinvent or remodel themselves into various other roles. But with Deepti Sharma, it's been very much the opposite. She's took on every challenge that has been thrown her way, and she's been performing with excellence, not just with the bat, not just with the ball, but with the bat as well. So she has established herself as a key all-rounder in this particular lineup was quite indispensable, really, because you have to see the kind of multiple roles she plays, not just as a bowler and batter, but also as a fielder. She took by far one of the best catches of the tournament earlier in the T20I series, and had there been no telecast, we would not have been able to see that spectacular fielding performance, and the scorecards would have simply read, bowler taking this particular wicket of this batter. So Deepti Sharma is that three-dimensional player. We often talk about this particular term in terms of men's cricket, but in women's cricket, I don't think there are very many occasions where we have brought up or we've used this particular expression, but she's as great a 3D player as, say, a Talia Magra is, although she's a pace bowling all-rounder, but in terms of all-round performances, she's right up there with some of the best in the world. Max Siva, Sunelise obviously bowls a little less these days given her captaincy duties, but here is a player who will continue to grow in this role, and she will, probably leave this game much enriched and as one of the best all-rounders to have played women's cricket, because there are not as many as we see on the current domestic circuit in terms of showing that enterprise or having that many multifacetedness to their arsenal, to their repertoire. But Deepti Sharma should really take a lot of confidence. She has been switching sides in the domestic scene as well. Moved to Bengal, started playing a different role altogether, and really found a new gear to her own game, having made that move away from her home state of Uttar Pradesh. So I'm extremely pleased to see Deepti Sharma putting in the performances that she is, and over the next couple of months, she has to play a key role, not just for India here in Sri Lanka or at the Commonwealth Games, but also for the overseas domestic side she's going to represent, including at the 100.
Certainly, that sums up the importance of a player like Deepti Sharma in the Indian setup. But before we move on to Sri Lanka, let's have a look at the playing 11 to see the matchups, how the teams are shaping up for this big and important contest. Probably it's going to be another decider, and Sri Lanka would want to bounce back. India, of course, as we spoke, that it's unchanged. We'll see the same playing 11 that we saw in the first ODI. Sri Lanka, however, have made 2 changes. Vishmi Gunaratne and Amma Kanchana have been included in the side. So let's get to talking about Sri Lanka. We saw that they lost the series against Pakistan, and now if they lose the second ODI, they create problems for themselves, and that's something that Chamari Tapatu wouldn't want for her side. So how would they approach this game, Thirush? It's an important one. They wouldn't want to lose it because consolation wins, of course. Probably the T20I, they won the third T20I against Pakistan. Also, they won the last game. But somewhere down the line, you want to dominate the proceedings as well, and especially when it comes to the home conditions.
Well, most certainly you do want to win, and I mean, being the decider, you want to play the best brand of cricket, and that's exactly what would go just not in the mind of Chamari Atapattu, but I think the whole Sri Lanka unit, that is exactly what would they would be thinking at this point. So to play a good brand of cricket, one positive that we can take from the last game is without the Chamaris contributing much to the scoreboard, they did make it to 171. So probably a good innings from Chamari would have got them to a very respectable score. And we also noticed that the kind of pressure that they were able to, I mean, as a bowling unit, they were able to hold, strangulate Indian batters for a bit at least. And luckily, we did have a last, I mean, we did have a good innings from Preeti, which enabled us to have a very comfortable chase. So today, Chamari's role will be very important. Yeah, we have been, she has been the backbone of the Sri Lankan batting unit. But with other players, we've always talked about the contribution from the other players, which didn't happen in the earlier game. So with the contribution coming from the other players, and with Chamari doing well today, certainly they would want to post a very respectable total, because they know that if they post a respectable total, that they have the game in their hand. That is exactly what they would be trying to do. A lot of focus will definitely go on carrying the innings, or and we also have the players like Nilakshi, who has been doing well. So contribution here and there, if they would certainly look at scoring some 240, 250, giving a good run for India in this ODI.
Chamari Attapattu's contribution will definitely decide if Sri Lanka are able to put that big total on board for India, because we know that the batters probably have struggled, but they've found ways to win games. But talking about the changes that Sri Lanka has made, Vishmi Gunaratne has been included in the setup. She'll make her ODI debut for Sri Lanka, just 16-year-old. We saw her that in the T20I game that she played with Chamari Attapattu, she had a good partnership there, and we were speaking that how big a lesson it would be for her to playing alongside the skipper and helping the side to provide stability to their innings. Did you see this change coming, Annesha, considering the struggles of Sri Lanka's batting unit?
Well, Ashwini, I was even wondering at the start of the first ODI as to why Vishmi Gunaratne was left out of the squad. Given her performance in the T20I series, yes, she did get that 145, which was by far her best performance. But even in the other two games, she did not look completely out of sorts the way some of the other top order batters did. So I was wondering, in fact, what made Chamari Atapattu to leave a relatively informed batter out at the expense of probably the more experienced campaigner she went ahead with in the first ODI. So, in my opinion, this is a great opportunity and great punt on the part of Chamari Athapattu to have brought in Vishmi Gunaratne, albeit quite inexperienced, relatively inexperienced than the other top order batters she had at her disposal. But I think it's a good ploy given the runs are really not coming from her some of the senior pros, so might as well give this youngster a chance who has shown immense gumption and caliber in terms of scoring those 45 runs against formidable Indian attack. It wasn't as though those runs came easily. She had to really eke out every single run, and she showed a lot of confidence playing the along the ground strokes as well as taking the aerial route at times, playing risk-free cricket for the best part of that innings of her. So I'm pleased to see her make a return to the Sri Lankan playing 11 and making her ODI debut. She debuted in the Commonwealth Games qualifiers earlier this year. That was when she made her international debut. Went on to play the T20 leg of this tour. Was quite impressive, especially given her backstory. She comes with a lot of runs on the school cricket circuit, and she's got a record haul in one particular innings of around 420 runs or thereabouts. So here is a player who is showing a lot of confidence, showing a lot of promise at a very young age, and it's up to the Sri Lankans, really the think tank, the captain, the management, to ensure that she's given the kind of exposure she needs, especially when she looks to be in form. You cannot afford to squander the momentum that a player may be having, or the confidence, the form she may be carrying into, from carrying from one game into another. So you've got to make the most of it as a resource manager as well, so to speak. So the captain needs to take that call, and I'm pretty sure she will be somewhat giving herself a pat on the back to have made this call. It's up to Vishmi Gunaratne now to transfer that form, that confidence she oozed in the T20I leg of this tour into the ODIs.
It is going to be a big moment for the very young talent, and a lot of hopes will pinned on her as to how she carries herself in this big game. But of course, speaking of other batters from the Sri Lankan setup, Harshita Madhvi is someone who comes to our mind, Thirush. We saw that she made valuable contributions in the Pakistan series as well, and especially when it comes to scoring in the middle overs. It's where Sri Lanka needs that kind of stability, that kind of poise in their innings to for someone to stay there on the field, and probably the other batter could then take the chance. Probably that could be the way going ahead for Sri Lanka in this second ODI.
Well, most certainly a lot would be expected out of Harshita Madhavi as well, because a middle order plays a very important role. Just not, I mean, any format you need somebody to stabilize the innings, and especially when you have a lot of quick wickets and you do not have a lot of dependability, you need a player who will be able to carry the innings forward, giving the other player the space to be a more explosive, because that's kind of strategy that's been adopted in the recent past, where we've noticed that one player can anchor, the other player can be very explosive. That way, you know that there's kind of some kind of stability that runs or gives the players a kind of confidence when you know a player is there. So she plays a very important role in enabling that. But we haven't seen big runs from her. There has been good some 30 odd runs or some 30s and some 25s, which is the kind of scores that we've witnessed from her. But today will be very important for her, because the kind of experience that she's possessed, you'd expect her to play a little longer. And we also have Nilakshi, who's there in the batting lineup, who can add a bit of a great experience, because when you have an experienced duo batting in the middle, that will enable them to post some good score. And especially, like I mentioned earlier, when you have a player like Chamari Attapattu in the one end, and then when you have Harshita Madhavi and then a Nilakshi, probably that will give the kind of stability that is expected out of the whole batting unit.
It's definitely going to be a big day for a lot of players from the Sri Lankan setup. They would need to come and express themselves and help Sri Lanka get that good total on the board. On that note, let's take predictions from our experts. We'll come to you first, Annesha. What's going to be the first innings score, and who is the pick of the batter for you?
Well, Chamari Athabatu says she's looking for a 240 odd runs, having been sent in by her opposite number Harmanpreet Kaur. But unless she herself starts firing, I don't see them really getting to that mark. Probably they'll end up somewhere around 200. And should the wicket be anywhere remotely close to what it was the previous game, I think 200 would be competitive. And we've seen the Indian batting order falter all through this tour, so it's not going to be a cakewalk for them by any means. But for Sri Lanka to even get to 200, they will require some big runs, that Thirush mentioned, because they've been scoring in just 20s and 30s, which is not going to cut it for them. Should they have any dreams of salvaging the series and equalizing in this particular game. So I think India, given their confidence, should be able to wrap up the innings or restrict Sri Lanka to about 180 odd again, like tops 200. But even then, it should be a score easy enough for India to overhaul.
Score easy enough for India. Coming to you, Thirush, what are your thoughts? Because as Annesha mentioned, it's a little bit of a difficult wicket to bat on, a little bit on a slower side. So your pick of the batter and the first inning score prediction?
Well, it a lot depends on how Chamari will be able to give the kind of start that is expected, because unless Chamari is going to score some big runs, with all the players putting together, I don't see anything above than 150. So, but the difference is going to be Chamari, who's going to determine whether they're going to go in for a 150 or a 240. So she is going to be the key player in determining how much they're going to score. Otherwise, being an Indian supporter, probably I would want Chamari to get out early and wrapping it up as less as 150. That is what would be my prediction.
So Chamari will be the difference. Let's see what happens. We'll of course join you for the mid-show of this match. Until then, you stay tuned to Women's Cricket Zone for all the updates on women's cricket.
ये पक्का अब सीख तो गए, अब तो जाने दो मुझे।
ठहर जाइए, कोई प्रॉब्लम हो गई तो कहाँ ढूंढेंगे आपको?
फैंटेसी अखाड़ा का 24/7 कस्टमर सर्विस है, आपकी प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करवा देंगे।
कल जाने देंगे।
फैंटेसी स्पोर्ट्स का असली अखाड़ा।
इस गेम में वित्तीय जोखिम के तत्व हैं और इसकी लत लग सकती है। कृपया जिम्मेदारी से और अपने जोखिम पर खेलें।